Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the National Parents Union presents Speak Your Truth with yours truly, Vivett Dukes. It's wonderful to be here as we are embarking upon a long weekend and back to school. We won't be streaming live on Monday, just so everyone knows that. We will be celebrating or honoring Labor Day with no labor. So we'll have something playing, but it won't be a live show like you are used to. Today, our show is really focused on mental health, the mental health needs specifically of the Black community, communities of Indigenous people of color who are just more affected by everything that happens in our nation and in our world. As the old saying goes, when America gets the cold, the Black community gets the flu. And at no time has that been more in my face and relevant than during this coronavirus pandemic. It's been really just startling and shocking to me to see how many people are in need. And in addition to coronavirus pandemic, I know personally I have been very, very taken aback, very disturbed, very angry about the continuous murders of Black men, women, and children at the hands of law enforcement officers. Um, it's as if every day I turn, it's not as if, it is that every day I turn on the television or I log on to one of my social media platforms, and the first thing that I hear or read or see has to do with a Black man, a Black woman, a Black child being killed by police. And there was one in particular, a case, Mr. Prude in Rochester, New York, whose brother called the police to help them. It was an SOS call, a cry for help. His brother was going through some type of an episode. Clearly, he had a need for some mental health care. And instead of getting that help, he was handcuffed, he was naked, and his a spit bag was placed over his head, and he ultimately died. All the while being jeered and jerked and joked about by the very police officers who were called to help him. I think about Mr. Blake. I think about Mr. Ahmaud Arbery. I think about Mr. Floyd. And these are just in most recent, this is just in the last couple months. In this recent case, the victim, Mr. Prude, this incident happened in March, very similarly to Ahmaud Arbery, where it wasn't until months later and because of public outcry that it came to public attention. So a killing that happened in March is just now revealed to the public. Here we are in the beginning of September. So I say all that to say I haven't really spoken much about this topic because it just has become very taxing emotionally for me. I'll find myself crying at different points, getting very nervous. The other day, I really didn't want my husband to leave the house. And I never really had fears like that before, but I definitely felt a shift. And I do believe that I should be talking to some type of a mental health practitioner. I think we all need to at some point in our lives. And as a people, as a community, it is most important that we take care of not only our physical bodies, but our mental health as well. It is crucial. And so that's the reason I decided to invite our guest for tonight, Mrs. Lisa Petgrave Nelson. Before I bring her on, I'd like to tell you a little bit about her and read her bio to you. I've known Lisa for a very, very long time, and she never ceases to amaze me. I wrote her bio out. I was so prepared, and now I can't find it. Here it is. Lisa Petgrave Nelson is a licensed social worker. She is certified in oncology social work and is a graduate of Adelphi University. She's also enrolled in New York University's Zelda Foster Leadership Program. Through her work, Lisa hopes to educate and improve healthcare equity for patients and families in diverse and underserved communities. Speak Your Truth, National Parents Union communities, please welcome Lisa Petgrave Nelson. Hi, Lisa. Unmute yourself. It's okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, for that nice welcome. Thank you.
Oh, it's an honor to have you here. I'm really excited to delve into a really serious topic. It helps that I feel really safe with you, that I know you, that these are things that we talk about in our personal conversations. And our talks are so rich. We can talk for hours, and the conversation will span for everything we'll discuss tonight and so much more. And I just wanted to share that with our viewers, because as a people, we're really hurting. Can you share with us, from your vantage point of being a licensed social worker, what the impact of trauma is on developing minds, like physiologically speaking?
Right. No, thank you, Vivett, for having me, and to the National Parents Network for having me. I think that, well, first, the definition of trauma. So trauma is the damage, or psychological trauma is damage to the mind that occurs from a distressing event. And I think all of us are really struggling right now with some type of psychological trauma. Thank you for being so, transparent and truthful about your feelings of, just feeling very overwhelmed and saddened by all of what's going on around us. And we've had our private discussions about that, just being very, just feeling we're inundated by all of these scenes that's become so monotonous and so usual to us now, of our husbands and fathers and children, sons and daughters being murdered on live, and so thank you for saying that and acknowledging that, because it's not normal, and it's just not right. It's not right. So we know that even for adults, us going through trauma, it's traumatic for us. We're seeing ourselves, we're feeling depressed. We need to call it what it is. We're feeling depressed. We're feeling overwhelmed. We're dealing with many distressing events around us. So we can only imagine what's happening in the minds of young children, those in particular, like Jacob Blake's children, who saw their dad get shot 7 times in front of him. And just saying that gives me chills, because I couldn't watch it. I saw, we're posting so many things online, but I couldn't even watch it. I heard the shots and it was just like, oops, stop. I couldn't, I just couldn't go further with it. So I can only imagine, and I can only pray that those children are getting the help that they need. And I'm sure that they're having some, obviously repercussions and symptoms of trauma dealing with that. So I hope the family's getting those children the help that they need.
Yes.
So as I said, trauma is damage to the mind. And we know how much a healthy brain helps us to give our full potential, and to, contributes to our overall well-being. And if we don't have that nurturing psychological upbringing, or people around us that are supporting us, we know that it contributes to a myriad of challenges, not only as children, physiological and emotional challenges, but it also goes and transcends into into our adulthood.
Yeah.
And some of those symptoms include, and it happens in children and adults, includes difficulty with attention, learning disabilities, low self-esteem, we lack social skills, sleep disturbances, and it goes further as we become adults into several mental health and anxiety disorders. We throw it around a lot, post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I see a lot of that, whether you are seeing your dad being shot 7 times, or you're a cancer patient who, had a double mastectomy, and now you're faced with your family dying from COVID, and you're now diagnosed with a neuroendocrine cancer. So we're living, it's just quite overwhelming. Yeah.
As you were speaking about Mr. Blake's children, watching him be shot in the back 7 times, ultimately leading to his paralysis from the waist down. He will no longer be able to run and jump and play with his children. I thought of Philandro Castile's, his fiance's daughter, I believe it was their daughter, who, as she's going through her own trauma, in the video that was released, I remember so distinctly her saying, "It's okay, mommy. We'll be okay, mommy." And I'm like, my God, on top of her trauma she's going through, she is in a role reversal, in a sense, becoming the comforter for the parent, and you also brought up for me, as we return to school, how many school staff, not just the teachers, everyone who encounters our children are really trained or knowledgeable about the traumas that they may be entering our schools with, whether it's virtually, whether it's, in person. You brought up learning disabilities, attention deficit. These are things that I'm used to encountering as a teacher, but I just feel like it's going to be heightened.
Absolutely.
So much.
Absolutely, it is. I know that I have 2 children, and I have a 10th grader now, and the school has already sent out information about, the social workers, counselors making themselves available to have these discussions about COVID. But unfortunately, we know that, all school systems are not created equally, right? And so that's it. As you said, what does that, as healthcare providers, as educators, what does that mean for us to be in the classrooms, to be in, areas of practice with our clients, our patients, our students? How can we support them? And I think you as an educator, it's even more. I think a lot of the teachers, I work in healthcare, a lot of our patients are teachers who are immunocompromised. They have to go back to school. They have to make a living. And it's very difficult. They're going through their own trauma. Family members have passed away from COVID. They're married to police officers. Their siblings are, or family members have had run-ins with some of the bad cops that we do have. And so it's very, it's all of us and are really struggling and trying to keep it together, and are, just in great need for, as you said before, maybe wanting to speak to someone or try to find different ways to practice that self-care.
Absolutely. You talked about self-care, and I really transparently said that I really am interested in getting some counseling, just in general, just for life. Like, it's different talking to your girlfriends than it is talking to a licensed clinician, but that's often very taboo in the Black community.
Absolutely.
So, like, what is that stigma about? What are these concerns? Like, why aren't Black people getting the mental health care that we so desperately need?
Right, because we're too strong. We're strong. We're too strong. We don't need it. we're super women. We're supermen. We don't need that. Yeah. No, I think we see that in all areas, whether it's in our classrooms, whether, in healthcare. But before we get into that, I think the first thing is to acknowledge the historical causes of mental health in our communities, right? Legacy of systemic racism, economical stresses, and then it's been polarized by COVID-19. A lot of our, um, as you mentioned before, you know, from we let me try to get the right words. Um, Many cultural and religious reasons, you know, factor into the reason why we don't seek mental health. I think that um, if we're looked at as weak, and African Americans, we're really, you know, we've come from a long history of perseverance, and we've come through a lot. And you know, you can't surely had gotten through slavery and can't get through feeling, you know, melancholy or the blues. You know, you can't, you you know, that can't be right. So I think that that's one of the reasons, whether it's religious, saying that, you know, you just have to pray the sadness away. You know, I'm not claiming it. You know, a lot of the times too, I hear our patients and they're just like, I'm not claiming that. I'm not claiming being depressed. And it's not, you know, you are depressed. You know, when you look at the symptoms and the um, the issues that you're going through, it's okay to say I am depressed. But I think that again, due to religious, cultural, and myself being Jamaican, you know, you're strong. You can't, you know, yeah, you have no time to be depressed. And so many of us are struggling with that. And I think that even more so with COVID, um, affecting all areas of our lives, our traditions, our way that we even grieve. You know, we're people who usually show up for repasts, and you know, we have, you know, we roll deep. We have a lot of numbers of people,
Yes.
you know, to support us. And you know, due to COVID and social distancing and isolation, what does that mean for us now? How can we, you know, how can we mourn our losses when it's six? I remember having 10 people in a, you know, in a funeral home to mourn the loss of like matriarchs and patriarchs in your family. So and that's very disturbing, and it's scary, and it causes a lot of pain, emotional pain for us. And so even more so, while we need to really dismiss these taboos and this ideology that we're strong, and that and Jesus is going to fix it, and yes he can,
Yes.
but maybe with a little bit of Xanax and some and meditation, and you know, and yoga, and prayer, and we need to really be looking at ways to improve our mental health and to build us up, and to really bring light to that.
Yes, one of my colleagues at National Parents Union, she hosts a show every evening, Monday through Thursday, Marisol, and
Mm-hmm.
she does a breathing exercise at
Mm-hmm.
the beginning of each show. And
Right.
can I tell you, just these rapid fire breaths, the
Mm-hmm.
holding in of breath, the releasing of it, it does help to calm down.
It really does.
I checked it. I did it one night. I did my pulse before and I checked my pulse after, and it was significantly lessened. So, even like if counseling could provide strategies like that for us,
Mm-hmm.
I know
Absolutely. I
for
think.
me, I don't want to share my business with someone who I don't think really understands me. Like,
Mhm.
I want to go ideally to a Black woman or a Black man. So there are some things that I just won't have to explain to them
Mhm.
because they're going to get it. And I think that that is a big holdup,
Mhm.
outside of possibly not having health insurance and
Absolutely.
other deeply rooted problems in our healthcare system and just inequities across the board. I
Right.
think even more so, it's just us not having, knowing the practitioners of color who we can go to who are there. It's very obscure. Like, I can't find them.
Right. Right. I think it's kind of, I always say I was looking for a Black therapist, and it was, you know, it was, I said it's kind of like trying to find it's like a unicorn. It's he's a unicorn, you know, or it's you. I know for us, you want to go by word of mouth. Oh, do you know someone? Do you, you know, you want someone who they can, you want to feel safe enough to speak to someone in your family, a friend, a clergy, or whoever, to say like, oh, do you have a therapist? And that is very difficult for a lot of us, you know, to actually go and say to someone, I think I need to see someone. But I think the way that our internet, one of the good things about the little phones that we have, that is, a highway to a gateway to the world, we can look online and we can just type in, Black therapist in Elmont, Black therapist in Shirley, Long Island. And we can, look online. There are various websites that we can go to. I know that and I apologize because there was a website that someone recently shared on Facebook to find a Black therapist. And I could give that to you another time if you wanted to add that to like a list of resources or something. But, you can go to psychology.com. And it first starts, and you know me, Vivett, I have children. And so I want them to see, a Black oncologist. I mean, not oncologist. I want them to see a Black ENT doctor. I want them to see I want a Black gynecologist, and so I made it I went, I called up and I was just like in Northwell, I'm like, I'd like a Black gynecologist. And they're like, please hold.
God,
Yeah.
Black person, help.
Yes. But I did end up finding one. It was just like, she's great. You go in, it's like, hey girl, and she's really, she's thorough. She knows, she understands. And so I think we really need to be more, like fully vested in finding people that look like us and and not to say that we can't get, we shouldn't go to, white practitioners. I'm not saying that. I think that there's, definitely if there's some disciplines that they're honestly, finding sometimes a Black endocrinologist or what, it's hard, So we just really, I think it first starts with trust and trying to reach out to others, people that we trust, that we can say, do you know someone? I know that through there's a Black Long Island group that I think we both belongs to. And that's a wonderful, I see people searching for all kind of Black practitioners through that Facebook page, and they've been really helpful.
Yeah, so, I'm glad you brought them up because they actually posted something in July about they put together a list of Black mental health care professionals on Long Island. So if anyone is looking for that, who's watching this, whether live on the replay, if you go to the Black Long Island Facebook page, you should be able to get that information. And I'll try to share it on here also.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's definitely needed. Another really big thing, Speak Your Truth is really all about supporting families who are impacted by the criminal justice system and impacted by incarceration, whether during or post. And that causes a big separation. So could you talk to us a little bit about the impact of separation on one's mental health? So not only separated from your family and community as a result of incarceration, but then within the prison system, you can be further separated through solitary confinement, which is 23 hours a day away. And even when you have by yourself in they call it the box.
Right.
The box is a totally different part of the prison. And even when you do have your 1 hour of recreation, it's in a cage just outside.
Right.
What does that do to us?
Yeah, no, and talk about inhumane. And before I get into that, I just want to tell you, thank you so much for you and John for bringing just such light and education, and to educate us about these things that are going on with incarcerated citizens, our people, so thank you so much for doing such great work and for helping us to connect and to see the voices, and even you putting your life on display and letting us know what it's like to be married to someone that's been incarcerated in his home. And I'm thankful that he's home. And I know that we've all been impacted somehow. Our communities are affected and impacted by the prison pipeline that we have, the new slavery, right? And so I can only imagine what it's like to be in jail and locked up and not have that personal connection with family members again, because those families so important to us, whether we committed crimes or not, whatever, Black, white, or whatever. family is very important to us. And so you're confined and now having to be locked away in the box for so many hours. It does affect us um, on so many levels psychologically. Talk about traumatic, because we know that, yes, there are going to be instances where, like with COVID, if it's for medical reasons or some instances, it probably is necessary to have separation or to restrict the restrict contact with other prisoners. But to separate them entirely and have them locked away like that, it's totally inhumane. It's extreme, and it contributes to more anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. I think a lot of times, and studies have shown that, as human beings, we want to connect with people. And so the prisoners even act out even more when they're in isolation, wanting to gain human contact and disrupting, whether it's cutting themselves or doing, whatever they need to do just to get that contact from being locked away like that. And again, as I said, my family has been affected by incarceration. And I just, I just, it's a topic that's just like so overwhelming and just very saddened to even think about, the inhumane practices, but it does affect our prisoners and just a horrible psychological damage.
So many families are impacted by incarceration. I know I say it often, but it really is true that every day, just about, I learn of someone new who has a loved one, a family member, a friend, either currently or formerly, who was incarcerated, who I would never think, they don't fit the bill, as we say, of what we may have in our minds about what an incarcerated person looks like or where they live or what's going on. But trust me, it's across the board. It's pervasive in our country. It's a really huge problem. And even for the family members, I feel like for myself, I know that definitely being separated from John brought on like feelings of anxiety that I was never anxious before. And it's not an extreme case, but I do feel at times, there were times when he was inside where, what if he didn't call? What if a day or two went by and he wasn't able to get the phone? Thank God that never happened. Only one time there was a lockdown. And it was just so much angst and, anxiety or going for a visit and being told no more visits.
Right,
and
right.
being turned away and just not having that access,
Absolutely.
knowing what's going on.
And you could think about, even children, your children, you have these young children or even teenagers, whoever, whatever the age group is, and not being able to see their fathers, their mothers, just, and as you said, going up to wherever the site is and wanting to visit and can't. It's a lot of, and leaving and not really knowing if you'll see that person again. I mean, we face that every day. We're totally aware of our, we have to be cognizant of our mortality. But then, when you leave, will I be able to see my family again, my husband, my child, it's, and all of that, as you said, for them, for someone to be locked away for 23 hours a day, without sunlight, without, just human, basic human, like we need sunlight, like we need water, like and I know that I just had a quick question for you. What do you say about just people who are, who will say, well, they got themselves there. So,
We all do things that we are not proud of. And I personally would hate to be judged and serve 20 years for the worst thing that I did in my life. I think I do believe there needs to be proper consequences for harm that is caused. I don't think it needs to take 20 years, however, to rehabilitate somebody. So yes, they did it, whatever. However, the criminal justice system is flawed. So there are many who didn't do it who are still there.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a sidebar, but
Hmm.
very close.
Hmm.
Also, being further punitive towards the person doesn't help them heal. It's like someone being overweight and you telling them, you're fat, you're disgusting, you're fat. Okay, is that going to help them lose weight, or is that going to make them eat a bag of potato chips and down a gallon of soda? You know, it has the adverse effect.
True.
So
It's
I
true.
just don't think like being so hard, or really no matter what a person does, they're still human beings.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think we lose sight of the humanity of people who are
Hmm.
incarcerated. And
Hmm.
I have felt my own humanity attempted to be stripped away just from loving someone who was incarcerating and choosing to support them. It
Absolutely.
was a very like disdain. It was a blatant disdain towards me for like, for what? Why?
Right. And I think it's even more disdain if it's, and I've worked when I lived in Florida for a brief period and I worked in a juvenile detention. It was a prison, a uh, level 8 prison. And many of these young men, teenagers at that time, their dads were like in a level up down the street from where they were housed. Right. And I think that I did see a difference it was predominantly young Black men who were there. However, I did notice a difference with the white prisoners. So even inside, with the treatment of the white prisoners, with their ability to see their families, for it to be scheduled, for them to see their families and interact with their children. And it was even harder for prisoners of color to get to get passes. And so it was a brief stint while I was there. But I really made it a priority and to be equitable in making sure that everyone got to see their family members, whether they were Black, white, Hispanic, or whatever. But I think, and even inside of that, you're able, there's still discriminatory practices, and it's not equal. People would probably be more receptive if you, and that's for another time, but if you were supporting a white prisoner, if it was a white ex-con, so you'd have to look at that too. Maybe that people would be more open, like, yeah, it's not that bad. But even more so, our communities, our men of color, are really being discriminated against, even within the prison walls.
Absolutely. I mean, when we think about the inhumanity of prison, um, women who are incarcerated sometimes go through the month and have their menstrual cycle and are not given pads and
Wow.
tampons.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
withholding pads and tampons
Hmm.
is it's done on purpose.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
withholding showers. That was a really big thing for John.
Mm-hmm.
We try to have a schedule, like try to have some semblance of normalcy, and like, okay, if you could call in the morning while I'm on my drive into work, that was like our time. Or even if we didn't speak throughout the rest of the day, we both felt good to know we started our day with each other. And
Right.
but it was an obstacle in large part, not so much the access to the phone, but the shower
Right.
and being
Yeah.
on standby for the shower. And I'm like, all of that for a shower?
Right. Yeah.
And oh, if this correctional officer is on duty, we won't have a problem with the shower. But if
Mhm.
this one is on duty, oh, they give us a hard time. Like,
Mhm.
who's giving people a hard time for showers?
Right, absolutely. And who are those people outside of, it goes into so many different dynamics, because who are those people outside? These are people that, people are married to, their church, they're going to church, they're teaching Sunday school or Sabbath school. And then when they come, they become a whole other person when they get to the prison, and withholding showers. And it's horrible. It's horrible.
We have to exact power like
Hmm.
that in ways that oppress other people.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of healing that we need to do
Hmm.
as a community. And I think the first step is having conversations like this
Hmm.
to start to feel even more comfortable using certain phrases. Like, I've had people come to me like, I think I need to see someone,
Hmm.
but so with so much shame. And I'm
Absolutely.
like, okay, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's like, it's fine. Because I see other people who are so like, Yes, I went to my therapist, and my therapist said, and they're talking, and
Yes,
it's like nothing.
yes,
It's just,
yes. It's
it's
a badge of
nothing.
honor. It's a badge of honor to have
Honestly,
therapy.
yeah,
Yeah,
they told me, oh, please. Yeah, I used to go 3 times a week. I
yes.
had to cut it back down to two. So now I go once a week. We're getting better. But they're
Mm-hmm,
talking about a relationship where they've sought help for
mm-hmm.
things they needed. They had a standing appointment. And it was
Absolutely.
even like, you know what? I don't even deal with this now. I'm just going to talk about it during therapy. Even
Right,
that helped to
right.
like
Absolutely.
de-escalate situations.
Absolutely.
So I'm
Absolutely.
like, oh, so we're the only ones who have it twisted.
Exactly. We're the only ones that are hiding and literally suffering in silence, and coming home and being overwhelmed and we don't have an outlet. And so that leads to more cardiovascular disease, cancers, anxiety, and it's like a revolving, it's just like a circle. We just keep going through this. It's like a hamster in a wheel, right? We just keep running around this wheel, not really and fully addressing the struggle that we have, the struggle that we're having, and not really knowing how to seek help. And so we really need to. I really hope that COVID has allowed for a lot of just a lot of changes in our entire world. And I hope that this is one of the positive changes that will come out of COVID and all the other things that are going on, all the societal issues that are going on. That because even more than ever, it shows that we definitely need to get mental health help. We're really, we're all struggling. We're all struggling.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what other things are you working on, Lisa? You're such a talented social worker
If you say
in
so.
a difficult field, oncology. So, you're literally dealing with patients for whom death is very much something that may be more in their face
Mhm.
than those of us who are not facing cancer are thinking about.
Right.
And just having that, you have to have a certain level of engagement, a
Mhm.
certain level of care. It's different, I think,
Mhm.
than other fields. So, in what ways are you active in your community? What other things are you doing just
Right.
to help us? And we thank you for your service because you are a Black mental health care provider. So, thank you.
Thank you. No.
There's one. The unicorn's here, guys. She exists.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, so in the field of oncology, like, or the infusion center where I work, I follow patients throughout the continuum of care from diagnosis all the way till end of life. And I do see a big difference being a minority in the field, all the way up through the Oncology Association the Association of Oncology Social Workers. They're really looking to get more African American practitioners in that field because we really don't go into that field, and or into that area of social work. And I kind of got in, I was working in nephrology, and as you know, African Americans really are the highest number of people who group that have renal or kidney disease, and so I went from there, from nephrology into oncology. I was supporting a lot of patients who are getting kidney transplants and dying from diabetes and hypertension. Say that again.
I was sorry to interrupt you. I didn't know that
Yeah,
that
yeah,
actually, and it's just another thing like we have against us. Like, what is it? The stress? It's
yeah,
like everything, no matter what's going on, we have the highest rate, the
yeah.
highest. Like, you can't live without your kidneys.
Absolutely. And so that opened up my eyes a lot into equity, into the health inequity. I was working in Atlanta at the time at Emory University, and I saw many patients who were coming from, the rural areas of Alabama and, white, Black, but they're primarily Black. And that goes into, the foods that we're eating, the diet, food deserts, not having enough food. It's a culmination of many, many things. And so, I went from there, from nephrology into oncology, because I was seeing many of those patients who were going into renal failure, and I was encouraging them to, get on the transplant list or to donate, donate and have a living donor transplant. Unfortunately, many of those patients have since passed away. And they were also diagnosed while they were being tested for, being worked up for transplant. Then they found out that they've had cancer. And so then here I was supporting them with, a cancer diagnosis in addition to having to go on dialysis and just
Wow.
another myriad of problems.
Yeah.
So there, my drive, or I started just pushing myself more. And after seeing all of those different, those shortcomings into that, in that field, just really pushing to educate myself more and seeing what I can do, as a woman of color, to educate and to support patients, that are really struggling with, as you said, the being very stoic and not wanting to tell their families about their cancer diagnosis. I know, we had, our Black Panther who passed away last week, and I've seen many patients like him who, they don't want to disclose, which is fine. But then I have patients who don't tell us, they won't tell siblings, they won't tell anyone. It's very stoic. And you want to keep your peer group tight. And it could be, I'm totally with, I really, support the patient or support whoever, if you don't want to disclose, that's your choice. Um, but a lot of our patients usually die alone, not wanting to tell anyone, get anybody in my business. I don't want nobody knowing. I don't want any pity, and even with our hospice referrals, a lot of our patients were just going to pray about it. You know, they're passing, they're actively dying and they refuse to get hospice. And so they're in pain more. They're not, it's a service that's there to help people, and they're not, they're not taking that wonderful resource, that benefit to support them or their families. But all that to say, so that's where my passion is, really wanting to be there and to really be in that role of educating and letting patients know what's out there for them, and really helping them to navigate the system and saying, yes, it's okay. Yes, you've lived a full life, or whether you're 40 or 38 or 78 or 80, and then saying, yeah, we'll go on hospice, or yes, let me get counseling, let me put some things in, let me get my business in order, let me put things in place, advanced directives, like it's all these things. Legacy, wanting to put things in place so that your children can know who you were after you're gone, and finishing up, with conversations and just different things to just enhance that part of their lives on, that journey, because that's what it is, a journey. So I enjoy doing that.
I can hear it. I know you enjoy it. I know you work very hard, and you care deeply about your
Mhm.
patients.
Yeah.
It's a field I thought about getting into. I started with human even the case studies. I was like, oh my god, this is so much. This is so this. So you care of mental health needs yours in order to care for other people. In our closing, we have a few more minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any of our viewers who say, well, I think I may have found a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
a social worker? What are some questions that I should be asking?
Yeah, there's like a little bit of feedback from what you're saying, but I think the question was how to choose a mental health practitioner. Like, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, if you want to repeat that.
Yes, you got it right. I was asking
Right.
you, like, what are some tips? How could people just know, like, all right, this is the right person for me?
Right, right. Well, first, it starts first with someone, if you're feeling depressed or saddened, hopeless, just having these feelings of, changes in your mood, your diet, that you feel like it's not going anywhere. The first thing is to start, to start by getting help, right, and seeking help. You can first, as you mentioned before about people who may not have health insurance. There are websites, not even websites, there are websites, there are phone numbers, there's crisis hotline numbers that you can contact them to find out what if there's places in your community, free clinics, and even sliding scales. People can help by, you can get a sliding scale practitioner based on, what you have. You pay with what you have based on what you have. Um, how to choose a practitioner. Well, first, you contact your insurance company and find out if you do have insurance, what practitioners are in your area, usually given a zip code, or you tell them, where you live, and they'll go ahead and just give you a list of providers in your community. You can also seek a referral through your primary care provider. And as we know, sometimes African Americans don't really go to the doctor due to a history of mistrust and all kinds of other issues or distrust. But it's important when you do follow up with your practitioner, to tell them, be truthful. I see it all the time when I go to the doctor. Are you feeling saddened? Are you feeling lonely? What are some symptoms? And so you put that there, and they're there to help you and to say, yes, let's start the conversation. What's going on? What are the symptoms? What have you been feeling? We talk about trust in our community. And so it's important, if you feel depressed or sad, and choose that one girlfriend who got some sense, and ask a family member who got some sense, and ask them, I'm feeling this way, and hopefully they can say, oh, really, and to engage you and to normalize those feelings. Hopefully, if the person, as I said, has some wherewithal and care to say, you know what, I'll even help you to look, so try to get an ally and to say, look, this is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling saddened and just overwhelmed. I think those are words sometimes we don't use with our, amongst our community. So that's the first thing. Contacting your insurance company, asking a friend, a family, or a trusted clergy. I know people really, are really connected with the church. A church is a wonderful place, but you want to be, you want your information to be confidential, and so if you feel that your clergy is trustworthy enough, you can touch base with them too, to find out if they can recommend someone. Education and licensing varies in each state, but you want someone who's licensed in their field, right? And their philosophy and their treatment approach. I think one website that's very helpful that I've recommended patients and friends to is psychology.com. And they do a lot with, you can kind of see what the person, it shows like a rundown of exactly what, where the person graduated from, what their specialty is. Is it anxiety, depression? Is it, sexual abuse? Is it trauma? So you get like a rundown of what the therapist or the provider is knowledgeable in and certified in. As far as tips, right? Let me go back a little bit. You want to find out, they can look into what you have to figure out, am I not sleeping? Am I feeling very depressed more times? Am I not being able to get out of bed? A lot of these depressive symptoms, they really do manifest into your body. You feel like you don't want to get up. I know that I felt that way, to be totally transparent, after George Floyd, and I just felt emotionally I was just done. Like I was just emotionally tired, drained, my body ached. And so, you have to look at that. And then when you meet with the professional person, I would hope that the practitioner, whether they're Black, white, or whatever their nationality is, that you want to establish rapport and take time meeting with them and telling them what your needs are, your concerns, your condition, and maybe you can get help with either counseling, psychotherapy, or you may need medication. So there are different levels. You may need to see a psychiatrist because they will help with, prescribing medications, but it's more than just a medication. It really goes hand in hand, as we talked about. It's about, seeing the therapist, eating a healthy diet, surrounding yourself with positive people and a positive surrounding, trying to find little things during the day to make you happy and to focus on yourself and practicing self-care. But if it feels like it's quite overwhelming where you're suicidal, again, you can call, your National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI, There's definitely, you can call, I think, either 211. I apologize. I'm trying to remember if it's 201 or 311. So you can call and say, I'm having an emergency, or, call 911. But,
Oh, I know.
I don't know. I don't know, which is sad. Call 911. I don't want,
I know.
yeah, yeah.
Isn't it sad that even who we should be calling for help, we have
I
to be
think
like,
twice.
yeah. And then this leads to people saying, that's why I don't go to anybody, because you can't trust these people, so
Yeah.
it can become a vicious cycle, but it's
It
something
can. It
to
can.
break
It
the
can.
cycle. So
Yeah.
I thank you for those tips, because I don't think we should take for granted that everyone knows what to do. And especially if you're already functioning from a less than optimal space,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have the wherewithal, even if well, you have the degrees and the education, and you may know what to do, but not even having the get up and go to really do it, And if you're identifying symptoms in a family member, a friend, like there's no harm in just giving a gentle nudge.
Absolutely. And just pulling to the side, being discreet, and being caring. We don't want you walking around diagnosing everyone. But it's important, like, just to be very cognizant of the people around us, and our, family members, friends, and we can say, all it takes is, are you feeling okay? I had a lot of that at work with everything that was going on. You'd say, are you okay? And and my colleagues, Black staff members, Black patients, they would say, no, I'm okay. But you could see the tears, the welling up of tears. And then it's like, let's close the curtain, because it's not okay, And I think that initially we want to put the facade on and to pretend, but it's okay to be vulnerable and transparent. No one's telling you to put your business out there. We know that we're very private, but still, I think that there's help there, and that, we need to talk with our loved ones, talk with our friends, our community, find an ally, find someone that you can connect and trust.
Lisa Petgrave, Nelson, thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you.
I feel more strengthened because I have gained knowledge. And I do believe that that's what education gives us. When we know things, we're able to move with a more furtive direction. We know where we're going, and we have a better clue of how to get there. And I know that our community and everyone who views this is going to be so blessed by it. I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, away from your husband, your children, your precious family time, to be here. But she's a family woman. She's a vegan chef. She's amazing. She's just a natural beauty. She's so many.
Oh, please stop it. Oh my gosh. Thank you. That's very thoughtful. Thank you so much.
Humble, but very bright, and always a source. When I need things, I'm like, let me call Lisa. Because I know if you don't know, you'll know who to direct.
Yes, and I could direct. Yes.
No, but thank you. Do it. Yes. You're like, okay, you told me last week you needed something. I got it for you. You're very diligent.
Yes. No, thank you. And thank you so much. As I said, thank you for being honest, being transparent with your life, and being a wonderful example of what a Christian woman, a pioneer, just someone who's really pushing for equity in her own right, and a wonderful educator. I think you make teaching look cool. You talked about going into social work. I'm like, girl, please, no, that you are in your field, So it's wonderful. It was wonderful being here with you tonight, and to all the, the guests who showed up. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. So just reach out to providers for support, and just reach out to Vivett.
Seriously, Vivett at mpunion.org. You can, if you have a question, I will do my best to connect you. We have a large network here at the National Parents Union. So on somebody's show, someone has the resource to be able to connect you. And that's what I like about this group. And that's why I'm a part of it, because we need help.
Absolutely.
The first step is admitting that you have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. We've had a problem for a long time.
Yes.
A multitude of problems, some of our own doing, many not. But however, wherever, whatever, the fact is we have them, and we need to heal. so that we can
Absolutely.
strategize and organize and really get on a better track.
Absolutely.
So with that, I'm going to say make sure you're registered to vote.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
important. That's part of taking care of your mental health.
Absolutely. Yeah.
um, you know, make sure that you are drinking your water
Mhm.
and going for walks.
Right. Keeping
And
busy, getting outdoors more so than ever, this fresh air, getting out. We need to clear our minds and, the take a get away from Facebook and and Fox and CNN, whatever it is, whatever side you're on.
yeah,
Sometimes you just have to step back. It's really overwhelming and it's too much. We're inundated with it. It's too much. So take a step back from the computers and the phones and just get out there. Yeah.
wow, we'll leave it on that note. Wonderful counsel. We thank you so much,
Thank
Lisa, for
you.
listening.
Thank
We hope
you.
to have you on again in the future at
Thank
some
you.
point. You have a
Sure.
standing invitation. And
Thank you.
we won't see you on Monday. To our viewers, have a happy Labor Day. And all going well, we'll see you again next week, Thursday. Until then, have a wonderful evening. Take good care of yourself, of your loved, and of your loved ones. Have a good night.
Okay, you're out.